Okay, so what I'm doing now is I am putting together the screen for a Beneteau, no, not a Beneteau, for a Jeanneau 54. The screen is for the companionway. So what I've done so far is I've cut it to match, and I am now pinning it to match. So I've got my pattern pre-made, and all I've got to do is get the canvas edges, and I'll go along, I'll go along here, clean this edge up, and put canvas over it so that we can put the snaps in the sides. So the companionway is now a let me move this camera over a little bit because the lighting is kind of funny, but the companionway is now covered by a plexiglass door that you can see through with a canvas snap-on cover. And what this will do is keep some of those pesky gnats and flies and flying bugs out, and allow a little bit of airflow. So my thinking is that we'll attach the two so that you can fold the companionway cover back and have just the screen snapped on, or you can put them both down and always have some type of coverage over the door. So what I'll do is finish pinning this and then show you guys how this is going to be put together. I tried to film my sewing project, my boat sewing project, and well, looks like I'm gonna have to repin this because measure twice, cut once. Thank goodness I did that. However, before I started pinning, I did not measure up my bottom versus my top and leave myself a adequate seam allowance. So I guess I'll be cleaning that up just a little bit here. I want about a 2-inch seam allowance so that I can encapsulate the screen into the canvas, and I want to have a nice hefty pocket to have that screen in, so that way any bit of tugging, pulling, and snapping that gets done, it doesn't tear this screen, because I want it to look nice. I personally wouldn't have gotten this screen fabric now that I've played with it. It's going to be fine because it's very fine mesh, which will be actually really good for a lot of the bugs. But there's another mesh out that it's a little bit further apart, but I still think it would stop the gnats. But I think it's going to be a bit more durable. So I think in future projects I would probably recommend that, just because of the sturdiness of that screen. Not to say that this is bad stuff, because it's actually decent screen fabric. I just think that customer might be a little happier with, or in this case my friends might be happier with something a little more hefty and durable. Anyhow, I'm going to finish pinning these and show you guys what's next. Lots of pinning to do all the way around, because I'd like to give them their cover back while I'm waiting on the fabric to come in. So I'll use a Sunbrella fabric and a UV thread so that I have no problems with sun and sun bleaching. Even though this is under a bimini, just depends on the angle you're parked in the sun or sailing in the sun, and you're gonna have exposure, so it's better to go ahead and pretend that you've got full-time sun on it. So anyhow, so what I've done thus far is I have pinned all along to match the companionway cover shape. So I'll do it down here on the bottom as well. And the bottom of this thing is actually filled with some type of weights. It almost feels like silicone beads or sand or something kind of heavy. And that's to keep it down so you don't actually have to have it snapped on the bottom as well. That makes it better so you can get in and out without actually having to take the cover off, which is really nice. I think that somebody was thinking ahead when they made this. I don't think that this was made by Jeannot. However, whoever did make it was thinking clearly. So, I'm going to continue to pin and walk you guys through this process. I'll go ahead and turn this camera a bit so you guys can see what I'm doing. I'm folding and pinning at the moment. And all I'm doing is matching up my edges so that I can encapsulate them in canvas. And I'll show you the companionway cover that already exists. Whoops. I'll show you the companionway cover that already exists as soon as I'm done matching it all up. I don't want to move it and have to redo anything. Just like I said, I'm gonna tell you, it's not working for me. Like I said, I would like to do this just once and give them their cover back while I'm waiting on the fabric. So, on to the third side here. Just matching this all up and pinning it down. And I'll trim and clean up the edges as I'm going through the project. But just matching this up as a pattern at the moment, it's not necessary. Just so I have my 2-inch seam allowance all the way down. And normally that's not a standard seam allowance. Whoops, there we go. So normally that's not a standard seam allowance, but because I want to put it inside of the canvas and have it double thick in there, I definitely want the full 2 inches because that's how wide my seam is on the existing cover. And I want it to look very clean and match. Ouch. So I'm going to put a 2-inch allowance all the way around. Now normally in standard sewing you do a 3/8 seam allowance or a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and in this case it's not going to be so small. So what I've done here is gone down and pinned, just matching each section so far. So this is what I'm doing. So I'll continue doing this here and working towards getting this thing done so I can get a little shut-eye. I'm pretty beat. I'll show you guys this fabric that I'm thinking would be a better screen fabric. It might be in my other sewing room. I'll have to go get it. But it's just a bit thicker. You know, they use it for duffel bags and towel bags. And I think that that would be ideal fabric. But I don't know, or the ideal screen, I mean. But I don't know. I'm gonna have to double check the mesh. I may take back everything I'm saying as soon as I look at that mesh. But at this point, I like the sturdiness of it. I think that this may have a tendency to look a little wrinkled as it's hanging as well. I'm hoping that the weight at the bottom will kind of reduce that, but this is a fabric that would, or this screen is something that would look a little ripply. So that's my one concern as well. I like a real clean look. I'm a bit of a picky person when it comes to that. I like things to look real crisp and clean. But not to say that it's going to look bad, because I think it's actually going to turn out okay. And I'm thinking that between the snaps on the sides and the weight on the bottom, it might take up any of that loose slack. So we'll see. Just about finished here. I can show you guys what I'm talking about and show you how everything's coming along. All right, so I've got just about 4 more pins to go and then I'm finished. This table is up against a wall, which I never recommend having a cutting table up against a wall. I much prefer them in the middle of the room. Then you get all the way around your cutting table and make more sense of it. I've got a rather cool cutting table that you can fold up and lay it flat against a wall, or you can make it into 2 different sections, 3 different sections. It's really kind of a cool table. I can't promote it and tell you the name because I don't even know what the name is, but it's sold at any of your fabric stores. And it just, both sides fold down and it becomes pretty easy to store and excellent to use. The only complaint I have is that the wheels are just a little bit flimsy under the legs, and so 2 of mine have broken off, and I have to put a block under one side in order to use it. But not so bad. Anyhow, all right, so one last pin and I'll pick you guys up and show you what I'm doing. All right. Okay, so now what we have is a finished shape that matches the existing companionway cover here. So we've got this on the original. There's this weighted edge, and there are snaps all along. 4 of them, as a matter of fact. 2 on top, 2 in the middle. And so this would be the top. This is the actual door portion. And then this would be the bottom where the weight sits on the floor. And so I'm going to give them their cover back. And I'm going to keep this as my template and as my working job until their screen is finished. So, oops. Now I don't have to keep their stuff any longer. And it's all pinned up and ready to go. So, this is their cover. And I'll just roll it up and give it back to them. And then when I get my edging, this thing's gonna look really good. All right. So this is that table I was talking about. It wings out. I don't know what it's called, but it's actually a really convenient turntable. So anyhow, I will make a part 2 to show you the finished project.